technology has not been our friend today.
We've got this.
Yeah, we do. How's your day going?
It's going really well. Thank you. Yeah, busy, but I love to be in that space of busy because that's when creation happens and the thrill of efficiency awaits.
Oh, definitely. Hello, hello, everybody. My name is Jay Walker, and this is Blind Dates. I'm here with my beautiful guest, Miss Jenn Taylor, or Jennifer Taylor, whichever you would like to go by. I guess I probably should have asked that before we started, but she is a communication specialist, and I will go ahead and let her tell us a little bit about what her life is about and what her career goes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Jenn Taylor is great. Haven't My dad's the only one who still calls me Jennifer, but
I feel that.
um, other than that, it's Jenn is perfect. So I'm a speech language pathologist by trade and licensure. I've been in the field for almost 2 decades, working with special needs families and parents, as well as a mother of three incredible humans and married to my very best friend, Josh Taylor. We own a company called Breaking Barriers Therapy Services out in Utah. And there we've been able to create this beautiful location where collaboration is key, where families are able to find that village because it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Mhm.
And in this work, we've been able to discover how it's not just about the child and maybe their needs or their challenges and the skill sets that they need, but also expands out to the whole family unit, right? And as we work closely with these parents, we help coach them, right? Coach them in diffusing the chaos and promoting the
Mhm.
peace in the home, as well as helping them support the child as well as they grow and develop. And it's just this beautiful thing is promoting that unity, right? Because I think we all have uh, maybe, how would we say it, that we all have a little bit of that dysfunction, right? you
Mhm.
can't you
Of
can't come
course.
out of childhood unscathed, right? But if we can mitigate it a little bit, let's do that, right?
Yeah.
And as a mother myself, knowing that I can never have enough tools to support that environment, right? Of how can I do right by my kiddos and help them become contributing, independent members of society. I think that becomes our ultimate goal at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit about us.
It's kind of hard to do to get your kids to be like, great members of society. It's a very intimidating process. So I'm really happy that you've been able to kind of be successful with that.
Yeah, it is such a joy. We actually just launched a new program, and it's called the Unshakable Mother.
Oh,
And yeah, right. That's the reaction I get.
I
They're like,
really like
"Oh,
that. Yeah.
tell me more." Well, having three kiddos who are about 2.5 years apart, you can imagine in those early stages of like 5, 3, 1, right? There was definitely some living for bedtime.
I can
And
imagine.
right. And living for bedtime is okay, is everyone alive? And
Hmm.
then I can finally breathe when we put them to bed. And uh, the challenges and struggles that come within this stage, as well as the other stages of parenthood, oftentimes we grab that phone to grab some quick doom scrolling, right? Like, I'm checking out, leave me alone for just a second, get a
Hmm.
quick dopamine hit,
Hmm.
or whatever, because it is hard, right? And as I found myself as this young mom living for bedtime, I was like, man, I'm not living at all. And then as I got older and I looked back at these pictures of these babies, it broke my heart because I felt like I was missing something, right? I was missing out on the great joys that are to be had during that role and stage of my parent development that also parallels that my child's development. And no one's really talking about the parent development.
Yeah,
And
I didn't even think
so
about that. You're right.
yeah, so I went through and actually, with my experience paired with my education and expertise as a communication specialist, developed the Unshakable Mother. And what this program does is it's basically coaching for parents, right? You get a coach for everything else that you want to be great at life. Why do we not have coaches, and why have we not normalized coaches in the most important work we'll ever do, which is within the walls of our own home?
Mm-hmm.
And so this teaches my signature framework, which is about, I call it the access method. And the access method structures the home in communication formulas, right? Like I say this, you say this, we get a result. And formulas exist all throughout our communication. So I teach the communication formulas, and then also teach parents uh, how to modify their environment so that they can be successful. I remember getting so mad at my child who was in the pack and play, supposed to take a nap, because he grabbed a bottle of mentholatum. Now, mentholatum is
Oh,
kind of that like real greasy, thick,
mm-hmm.
smelly,
Yeah.
balm. And he was able to reach from his pack and play off the little, it's probably a dresser that was really close to him, reach it, and proceeded to finger paint with the
Oh,
entire jar of mentholatum.
oh no.
So not only is he covered head to toe in it, everything else has it all in all the crevices and creases. And I was so upset. How dare you? But why does the child have access to the mentholatum?
Mm.
Right. And
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
and so there's keys to being able to see and look at your environment to set you up for success and the children, which adds to mitigating the chaos. So the Unshakable Mother is gaining a clarity on what is our role, first and foremost, right? What is our role as a parent? The stages of our parent development. And as we gain a clear understanding of that, it opens the door for us to be able to really reflect on what's my limiting belief about being a parent. I can share with you mine.
Yeah. Can
I,
you?
I'm not enough. I'm
Oh,
doing it
okay.
wrong. I'm a yelling mom. I'm just always irritated. Right? These were things I like identified with. I was like, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that classic not enough crept into my motherhood. And then as I would say these things like, well, I'm just a yelling mom. That's just what I do. That's what I saw. That's what we do. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to look for all of the clues in my environment that lie is true, right? So I'd be more reactive.
Mm-hmm.
But more so, when we look at our limiting beliefs, I started looking at, well, what do I believe about my kid? And I got thinking, oh, you're lazy. You're out to get me. You're
Mm-hmm.
just trying to irritate me. You're trying to, right? And really taking a minute to reflect back on what are we saying in our mind about our children? And what are we saying in our mind about ourselves? And sometimes when we peel back the layers, it can get a little ugly, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
And this is really what drives us to react. There's
Okay.
all kinds of parenting tips and do this and do that out there, like if the child says this, you do that, but no one's really talking about what's happening at a lower level, that deeper level, because I can give you all the tools you could possibly put in your toolbox, but until you get honest with yourself on your own limiting beliefs and being able to then, well, what's the truth, right? The truth is I'm a dang good mom.
Heck
Right?
yeah.
That is the truth. um, and my actions show it by seeking out education, by reading the books and trying new tactics and engaging with my kid and giving up my own like fatigue to just read that nighttime book because it's our nighttime routine, right? There's a lot of times I wanted to just go, and oh, did you want a story? It's called Darkness, go to bed. Right?
Oh, the story of my life. That's so funny.
And so, you know, in those day to days, those little things, you're a good mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Find that truth.
I think,
And as
yeah,
we,
that's really important.
yeah. So as we uncover the truth and then really uncover the truth of what we're saying about our kid, the framework really goes deep into identifying it's not that the kid doesn't want to do well. It's that maybe he doesn't possess the skill set yet to meet your expectation.
Okay.
And shifting into being a detective. Anyway, I've touched on a lot of big stuff here, and I get really excited about it. So I apologize if it's all over the place.
No, it's good.
But anyway, it's a really exciting program that we've launched and really looking to create a movement of debunking. Well, my kids are just this age, so it's supposed to be, and it has to be miserable. Because that is so far from the truth.
Okay. That's really reassuring, actually.
Good. I'm so glad.
I always say that, everything is linked back to learned behavior. Everything we do day to day, like even the way that we cook, the way that we speak, the way that we walk, like it's all learned. And so like how, do these parents eventually, get to the point where they're at this point where they think like, I'm not a good parent, like I suck, I'm a yelling mom or whatever. Like, is it a behavior that's just being reinforced over and over again by the child's actions, or is it their own mental game playing back at them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. And let me just make sure that I understand it completely. So you're asking, how does a parent get to the point of feeling like they're failing?
Yes.
Great question. I think that's where it stems from, the limiting belief, right? So it's going to be an understanding our role. So I polled about 5,000 parents, and I said, "Hey, what is your job?" And it was amazing. The number one, as they saw it, right? What is your job as a parent? And the most common response that came out is they said, "Oh, well, happy and healthy kids. That's my job. My job is to just make sure I've got happy and healthy kids." And you can see the fallacy in that is your job is not to make somebody else happy. And if you think that you're supposed to make your child happy, you're in for a world of hurt, because learning only happens through discomfort. And so when they're expressing themselves in any capacity, whether it's crying or stomping or throwing a tantrum or irritated scoffs of, I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah, that was me. I was the irritated scoffs.
With the eye rolls, right? And what they're doing is they're just communicating, right? I think we internalize that. We might fall subject to that internalization of, oh, they're not happy, what am I doing wrong? Whether we're saying that out loud or subconsciously, right? There's lots of psychological play or even behavior play. And this is generational. Think about it. Did you ever hear this phrase at your house? You as the child. Okay. And the parent says, "Oh, dad's going to be home. Hurry, go clean your room to make him happy."
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was my whole life.
Yes. You and the majority of the rest of us, right? It was a motivator. It was like, okay, go and do this to make me happy. And the kid is so eager to please the adult in their life, right? Because when you are pleased, they link that to love and connection and belonging. When in reality, most homes, I would hope, there's nothing you can say or do that will change my love for you. You're my child. And I genuinely believe that the majority of people feel this way, right? But yet, as parents, we lack the skill set to ensure that, one, that's the truth. And yet, how do I navigate and set up the discipline, right? The discipline, the teaching, the coaching, and the mentorship that's required to help raise an independent contributing member of society. And so us is, because all we know is parent-child relationship and sibling relationship, right? Because those are two very different dichotomies. And then we get into a dating or romantic relationship or marriage relationship, and that's something we got to figure that out, because I have no other example in my life where I've done that, and where we'll see communication difficulty occur in this equalship, this partnership, right? Is because we're trying to figure out what is our hybrid of communication. What is our formula of how we're going to understand one another?
Okay.
Have you ever felt like you're both speaking English, but you're speaking different languages?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. This is kind of what I'm getting at. This happens because we don't understand this formula concept. When I say something, you say something. When I say something, it means something to me, it might mean something different to you. So, how do we calibrate? How do we get on the same page with what our words mean? And what are those kind of those, I call them the little yellow lights. Let's slow down for just a second and sync up. Let's slow down for just a second and calibrate. And now we can move forward with greater understanding.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, my mind is just kind of like blown. I'm like just kind of taking in all this new information. Like this is a whole new perspective I never even thought about before.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Think about a
So,
scenario in your life and throw it out to me and let's dissect it.
okay. Um, oh God, I don't know. Um, okay. So I have no idea. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Give me more guidelines. A situation about what?
Well, this is a blind date podcast. You can talk about dating. You can talk about a sibling. You could talk about a parent-child relationship. Any one of those.
All right. So I guess let's talk about the relationship between me and my mom. Um, it is, we are very united. Like we are very much together. But it feels as though like she's very um helicopter parent, I guess is a way to say it. And obviously I understand where all that stems from because she watched me go blind when I was 15 and I've had a lot of other health issues in the past, and so obviously she's nervous about that. And as caring and as lovely and as 100% devoted to me as she is, sometimes it can be a little overbearing. So, what is that kind of relationship like? What is that communication?
Yeah, that's so common in any parent-child relationship where the child had any sort of special need, right? Your
Hmm.
mama watched you go blind. She was taking you to doctors. She is panicking. There were tears shed in the privacy of her room and maybe even the closet so you couldn't hear her because she's mourning the loss, or how are we going to navigate this, right? And
Hmm.
I'm sure there's even things on the back end where she's calling up providers, be like, help me, I don't know what to do. What's
Absolutely.
next? Right.
Hmm.
And when a parent is put in that kind of position, there becomes this incredible, uh, this phenomenon, right, where they sync up and they link with this child of like, you need me and I need you to be okay,
Hmm.
right? Like their greatest desire is to go, are they going to be okay? Especially if there's any sort of high level of health issue. And it does something really fascinating to the on the parent side. So I'm going to speak from the parent, okay?
Give it to me.
Yeah. So as the parent, what happens to them is their emotional power. That our emotional power is our own emotional control, emotional regulation. This is what we ultimately have control over, what we choose to do with it. You get to feel because you have a body. You're built to feel and designed to feel all the feels. There's no good and bad. Sorry, I'm digressing for just a second to make a point. There's no good and bad feelings. There's just feelings, and some are comfortable and some are uncomfortable. Okay, I
Okay.
just need to make that point.
That's a good point to make.
Yep. And so, but we allow influences to provoke us or to ignite reaction, right, based on our skill set. And when a parent is fighting for a child's, dare I say, life in any capacity, right, it's almost like they give their power to that child. And they're like, that child, when they respond or react to certain things, it revs up the parent more.
That
And
makes a lot of sense.
I'll give you a story about my own children. So my oldest had a set of his own set of special needs, and it was more in the mental health realm, really young, to the point to where when he was 9 years old, I found a suicidal self-portrait drawn by him. You can imagine my devastation as the one choice you can't come back from, my 9-year-old was contemplating. Just absolutely the ultimate pit of my
Yeah.
parenting. Like, you want to feel like a failure as a mom? Like, you find one of those. At least that's what I was feeling like. And so I began the journey of fighting for his life. And we have a book coming out that talks about this called The Hoodie Effect. And it really dives into the details of dealing with this from both parents' perspective, both me and my husband. And then you get to hear from my now 16-year-old as he's this thriving human who's come out of this darkness. It's going to be fantastic. But anyway, so as I found that his set of special needs and fighting for his life, I felt that emotional pull, like my power was being, if I'm a victim, it was taken from me, but really I gave him this power. And he would get sassy or throw a stink or throw, throw a chair. I mean, we had even that at our house.
Been there. Been there.
And then his younger brother, who's just 2 years younger, would say something very similar or display any kind of defiant behavior. And I look at him and I'm like, really, dude? Really? You're going to die on that hill? And I didn't feel that same sort of emotional rev or escalation with the second child. I was like, come on, like, let's work through this. And you go back to the oldest and he would do the same thing. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe he would even do this. That's right. And I would feel this reaction internally. And as I worked in my career with parents and children in this similar sort of special needs space, I watched the parents have this same kind of emotional, like umbilical cord, if you will. Right. And when I realized that I was responding different to two of my children over the same circumstances, I went, what's the common denominator? Me.
Mm-hmm.
And can I take my power back? And the answer is yes. So I'm a scientist, right? I'm running social experiments all the time. And I'm my number one guinea pig. And unfortunately, my kids are the second guinea pig of my social experiments.
Of course.
Naturally, right? And so I decided to run the social experiment. And I was working on, the question, can I take my power back? Is this emotional power, this rev I feel with one kid versus not feeling it with the other? What is that? And how do I get to a space where I can respond and not be so reactive?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes, you absolutely can. But you have to be willing. There's a willingness in there to peel back the layers and be honest with yourself to then better the relationship that ultimately, your mom, you're okay is crucial to her, right? She's like, is she okay? Is she going to be healthy? Is she going to be happy? Is she going to be, all these things we worry about as parents. And so here she's this helicopter. Why is she a helicopter? Because she feels that connection, having given so much of not only herself to ultimately protect you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And as you've become an independent contributing member of society, now the conversation is reassurance of, hey, mom, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the question really is like, how does she let go of that? How do you let go of being the helicopter parent? How do you take your power back?
Right. That's a great question. So knowing if you feel comfortable sharing, because hi mom, she's probably listening.
Hey.
Understanding a little bit more information about your personalities, right? When you say, hey, we are connected, we're pretty synced, like how synced? How independent are you? Are you
that's a great
asking questions all the time? Are you like, mom, is it okay if I, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is that serving each of you? How is her swooping in serving her? How is you, do you reach back and go, Mom, do this for me, help me take care of this? And that would be my question to you. What is the situation?
It's more like kind of the first example that you mentioned where yes, there's some things on occasion that like I need her to help me out with, like whether it's like insurance or like, taking me to a doctor's appointment or something like that. But I mean, in regards to like, you know, cleaning, grocery shopping, going to school, doing everything else, like I'm by myself and I do it by myself and and it's just funny because anytime I'm like, "Oh, I'm going out with friends," she's like, "Send me your location, do this, do that." And I'm like, "Okay, okay. Take a chill, Kendall."
Oh, Jay, both my parents have my shared location and I'm 40 years old. Okay.
So it'll never end.
The thing is I look at this and they know and they give me space to fly. And we're now at the stage of, because we talked about parent development. Parent development, the last stage is friends,
Yeah.
right? And it absolutely is. And the mentorship continues, right? If you've navigated each of the other stages of parent development, you get to mentorship where the child now comes to you and asks you, and you get to offer a mentorship with them. And that can be ongoing forever,
Hmm.
right? And you also get to then um, become friends. And I'm sure you experienced that friendship.
Definitely. Yeah. She's my best friend. It's kind of
Yeah,
pathetic.
yeah, it's beautiful, right? And the parent will never stop worrying if you're going to come home, right?
Hmm.
If you're going to be safe. So is my mama calling me and be like, "Where are you at? Send me your location." None of that. I'm like, "Hey, listen, we got the shared iPhone thing. Here's my location. You can watch me." And she watched, and we actually all watch each other. It's part of our family dynamic where we're like, "Oh, look, so and so's in Paris, and so and so's down in Cabo, and somebody's in Utah, and the other one's over in Florida." And it's just
You got a
fun. It
very
becomes a
decorative
fun,
family.
yeah, it's a fun game to watch everyone travel around the world. And
Hmm.
every once in a while, a screenshot's taken of something that feels um, significant and sent out. Oh, look where we all are. So it's that doesn't necessarily become a helicopter thing, but as a uh, keeping tabs on each other. So
Hmm.
being in each other's life, really,
Hmm.
right? Now, if she's you're going out with friends and uh, she wants to interview them before you
That
go.
has happened. There was a
Okay.
period of time when I first went blind and was in college that she actually just told me this recently that she would come down to the university and watch me walk to class to make sure I
Because you
got there.
can't see her.
Yeah. She lives an hour and a half away.
Oh,
And
yep.
like it's the kind of thing where like if I stub my toe, like it's like, do I need to call an ambulance? Like it's very much like it's and obviously I understand where it all comes from. Like it's very understandable. And I appreciate it because I'm like, you know what, you care about me and thank you.
Mhm.
But sometimes I do have to tell her, like, bro, like it's cool.
That's right, bro. Listen, I love that. And I think that reassurance and just having those open, clear communications of expectations. And as long as you understand and grant her the grace that, hey, she will always need to know if you're okay,
Hmm.
right? And there's there's patterns, right? There's patterns. You talk about patterns of behavior, and we get used to these patterns and we get comfortable in these patterns. And when we are in a pattern of, let's just use the word hero, right, where
Hmm.
you're coming in and you are helping to such an extent, that's your pattern. That's the dichotomy. That's the relationship that, okay, I protect you and you stay okay.
Okay.
And that hero mentality, how does that serve us? Well, it serves us in the way of, it helps us feel significant, right? And so her checking on you and making sure you're okay, not only is, you know she's given so much of her life for you,
Hmm.
right? Like, you are her blood. Like, she just, you should please be okay. There's this desperation that kind of happens with parents, but also it helps her stay significant in your life. And one of the hardest things for a parent is understanding that our role is to ultimately become obsolete in our child's life.
Interesting. Okay. Wait, elaborate on that. Yeah.
Well, this to be obsolete, like whether you're there or not there, like that's a devastating gut punch, right? You're like, wait, but this is my baby. I don't ever want to be obsolete, right? They want to be connected. But as far as the need for you, right? That is what being when the child becomes an independent contributing member of society, you become obsolete in pushing or supporting that because they can stand on their own. And being able to accept that a child can stand on their own and that you step into more of that friendship space, then that can sometimes be difficult transition in our parent development because we want to be needed. Why am I writing my 16-year-old's paper for English? Right?
Yeah, why are you writing your 16-year-old's paper?
Yeah,
for
why am
English?
I doing that? Yeah, well, I'm really not doing that.
But
I was gonna
say we were
gonna
have to have a conversation.
Yeah, I know, right? So we're sitting there and we're doing homework. He's like, yeah, but mom, and we're working through this paper, and he's moving onto fetal position on the floor because he's so overwhelmed. I'm like, just tell me, dictate it, okay? Just dictate. And I'm typing, right? Because he needs all this support in the overwhelm of his own inner chaos of being a sophomore in high school, of this overwhelm. Like, you've been there. You understand how
been in
these
that
kids
exact same situation.
Yep. And what did mama do? Dictate to me, I'll type it, okay? Like,
yep.
Now, did I adjust a few of those sentence structures? Absolutely. Just to make more sense. I'm like, how about we say it this way, okay?
Oh yeah. When I was a junior and senior in high school during COVID. And so when I was taking all of my AP exams, I was doing it online from the comfort of my bedroom. And so naturally, I just had my mom and my sister help me. And so it was like my mom reading me notes, my sister typing, and me looking through like vocabulary words, and I got a 5 on it. So I mean, like, I understand
all hands
that
on deck.
yeah, like when you need it, you need it.
Exactly. But the point being of why I even bring that up is going to be, okay, why do I do that instead of just let him flounder, right? How does it serve me? If I dug into it, it was because he needs me. I still am significant. That it's a little while to get there, but it makes me significant in his life. There's lots of other layers before that. It's like, well, if he fails, then he has to retake it. And then I got to deal. Do you hear the wrong? That's limiting belief kind of talk.
Yeah.
I have to engage with the teachers or with him, or, he may not graduate, or he may not do all of these what ifs, right? And so peeling back the layers of why we do the things we do in our relationships, everything you do serves you. Right? Swooping in as a classic hero complex to be one significant, and then it also can serve a deeper limiting belief, right? And it might be, let's say you give somebody an assignment to do a task and they don't do it, or they fail, and you see all the problems and you're like, oh, I'll just swoop in there and I'll fix it. So you swoop in and you fix it, and here you are, the grand hero, but inside the resentment starts to brew, right? Why is resentment brewing? Because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and I had to do this, right? Becomes the inner conversation, and you feel that resentment. Okay, well then how is that resentment serving you? Well, that resentment makes me a victim of your lack of follow through, right? And then how does me being a victim of your work, I don't have to hold responsibility. So now I've abdicated responsibility, which ultimately serves me in I'm alone and I have to do everything myself.
Dude, I think you literally just dissected my mom's whole brain. when she listens to this, she's gonna be like, wait a minute. That
Well,
was
there you go.
that was spot on. That was exactly like the torrent of events that happens with my mom's life every single day. Like she jumps in to, help somebody out and then, does it a certain way and then, it just leads to resentment. And it's interesting how, you know, over time, how the way that even though we're the ones making the choice to help, like it's causing resentment because it kind of is going against our own like ethical and moral values. Like, because if we don't help, we're gonna feel worse.
Yeah. Well, and resentment is a really fascinating emotion. Um, I love jumping into the emotions and dissecting them to really what is their purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they all, 75% of them cause discomfort, right? And we can talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about resentment and what does it really mean? Resentment isn't about what you did. Resentment's about me and what I allowed myself to do in that circumstance.
Okay.
Resentment is me not holding my boundary. Resentment is me not being brave enough to say or communicate what needed to happen. So in this example of the swooping to rescue, to serve my I'm alone and I have to do everything myself, right? Because I got to prove that lie is true. I'm gonna fight for that lie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once I recognize that it's a lie and I'm surrounded by people who want good and right and true along with me, and I do have resources, or if I don't have them, I have skill to go get them. Like we're really not alone in this world. We're not. I guarantee you, if you looked for it, you could find
Absolutely.
that support and help, right? So once I accept the actual truth that I'm not alone and I don't have to do everything for it, now I start moving forward through this breakdown and I go, well, where did that serve me? What actions did I take? And ultimately, the action I took initially was to be the hero of significance,
Okay.
right? And what I failed to do in that moment was go to the person who was originally responsible for following through and hold them accountable and hold the boundary of, hey, I asked you to do this. When's a good time? Or, hey, I understand that you had some difficulty getting to this task. How can we support you taking care of your responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
Swoopers oftentimes fail to hold whoever was supposed to accomplish the task accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's almost as if they have like really loose boundaries. Like they, yeah. Okay. Continue.
Well, and my generation oftentimes doesn't even understand what a boundary is.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, pick up your shoes, and that's a boundary. And you're like, no, that's a direction.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I don't think a lot of people like even my age really understand what boundaries are because most people I would say that in the older generations take direction and think that that's a boundary, whereas people take things in my generation um like I don't like the way that you chew your food like that and like making that a boundary. Like and that doesn't make any sense. Like I don't feel like people actually understand what setting a boundary is and how to hold it.
You absolutely nailed it, because telling somebody to do something is not a boundary, that's a direction, right? A boundary is, what am I going to do in my life under my circumstances, under the parameters and circumstances which I set. So if it's like, don't yell at me, that's a direction. I'm not going to engage in this conversation until we are able to bring the volume down. Let's take a break. Let me know when you're ready. That's a boundary. I will not talk to you when you're up here and I'm holding my hand way above my head, like high level of emotion. And when we're down here and I bring my hand down low, about hip and waist level, when you're down here, that's when I will talk to you, right? A boundary is, what will you do? Not what the other person does. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I saw this I was in a class last semester called Burnout and Indirect Trauma, Self-Care Burnout and Indirect Trauma. It was a great class. And one of the things that we talked about was Jonah Hill actually sent out text messages to his girlfriend who she ended up screenshotting them and publishing them because she's a G. But they were basically like my boundaries in our relationship is that you cannot talk to other men, you cannot surf with other men, you cannot wear certain clothing out, and that is my boundaries. And if you do not respect it, like, then we cannot be dating. And I was like,
Oof.
Jonah Hill is supposed to be like the mental health celebrity or whatever. And it's like, it's so funny that even, people who are quote unquote, supposed to be educated in mental health, it's like just completely out the window of what a boundary actually is. So can you describe to me, like, in a little bit, like, give me more examples of, like, in that situation, like, say your girlfriend is, you know, hanging out with other dudes, dressing not a way you don't want her to, whatever. Then, like, how do you set a boundary versus doing what he did and just being like, you're being gross and I don't want to be around you?
So what Jonah Hill did is he laid like, and I don't know, I haven't seen this, so just based on what you've explained to me, right? In this type of scenario where someone else is giving directives, challenging the autonomy of another human being,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to tell you what you can and cannot do. That's not a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
The best way for an individual to have handled this would be, hey, if you are seeing other people, we will not be exclusive. Like, I will not be in an exclusive relationship like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you decide to engage in this type of activity, I will not do, right? He needs to state what he's going to
It
do,
should
regardless
always
of what
go
it
back to
is.
you. Yes.
Yeah, because it's about what it's about what the individual who's setting the boundary. It's about what they are going to do. It's your actions in that environment. So if he says you can't talk to other men, that's my boundary. Well, he failed to set the boundary. He's asking. He sent a request. Don't talk to other men, or what? Right? Like, and that's where then the individual can make the decision, right? I mean, this is not even dealing with the content of these claims. I'm like, whoa, you do not mess with people's autonomy. You do not
Yeah,
dictate,
it's very much,
right? But
yeah.
I'm not going to jump into that because that's not the question. The question is, what are some examples of what a real boundary looks like, right? Um, so a great boundary, I can share a great little like one with my teenager just recently. So one of his obligations is to drive his siblings to school, and that is how he accesses his phone. And the way that we handle the access of the phone is we have iPhones, so I just brick it. I can press a button and it can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most beautiful thing ever.
It's
I was like,
amazing.
oh, in order to access and have your phone functioning, just like if you wanted to access the Wi-Fi, you got to put in a code, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have codes at our house. Well, what's the code? You listen on the first time, you follow, whatever your obligations are. It's about accessing privileges. So his phone is a privilege. To access it, he must take his siblings to school. So that's his code. So he takes the siblings to school, phone works, no big deal. He fails to take them to school, the phone gets bricked, right? Like, that's holding the boundary where he's like, yeah, but mom, like, I've got to talk to my tutor about this or this. I'm like, I'm sorry, you denied yourself access. I didn't take it from you. You took it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, if we're talking about like a dating relationship, right? Or, with a significant other, and you want to set boundaries, about how you talk with one another. Is that a good example?
Yeah, that's
Or
perfect.
treating like, okay. So I'm a big believer in establishing the exchange. You've heard me talk about this concept of formula, and let me expound on that a little bit so that our listeners understand what I refer to as a formula. This is derived from when I was working with teenagers with autism, and we're working on all this social pragmatic, all the nonverbal language,
Mm-hmm.
reading between the lines, facial expressions, tone of voice, and it just is a lot. It's a lot more difficult for those little micro cues. It's hard to read them, right? And so I'm teaching them how to read the micro cues. I'm teaching them about the different aspects of this social language. And I found that the easiest way
Are you
to,
using a microphone?
yeah, is it doing something?
It's kind of fuzzing out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Here, let's move it. How about now?
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay. We'll just talk like this. Okay, so we've got to understand social language. And the easiest way to explain social language is to really unveil and identify this concept of formulas in our communication. So if
Okay.
you liken it to math, A plus B equals C, right? A plus B equals a result. I say something, you say something, we get something at the end. And a great example of this is when we very first started, right? Hi, how are you doing today? And you say,
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You got plans for the weekend?
Not really. Do you?
Okay,
I
so
understand. Yeah, like the back and
this is
forth.
the greeting formula, right?
Uh-huh.
It is the same across when we greet someone, and there's variations of it. But basically, at the end of the day, the greeting formula is meant to communicate, I acknowledge your presence and you acknowledge me. And
Okay.
then we move into the meat of the conversation. So every relationship, every a dichotomy is the variances of relationships, right? It's going to look different between you and your bestie, between you and your mom. It's going to look different between you and a significant other, right? Or even, that rival that you may have, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Of course.
dichotomy is going
That
to look
sneaky lady.
different.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but within those there are formulas. And so we want to, whether we're aware of them or not, there just are. That's why people go, why are we fighting about this again? Well, because you fall subject to the patterns
Yeah. Okay.
and the formulas that you've set, right? It's all, like you mentioned, it's human behavior and it's human patterns. And we have the power to change the pattern to create greater peace and unity and diffuse the chaos. But we have to recognize what those are. And that's, part of my specialty is dissecting. Okay, here's the pattern. How do we reset that pattern? It's easiest done when both parties are on board, but it's absolutely doable when it's only one of you. But you got to be able to hold the boundary of what you're willing to engage in, right? Because you've got to train your counterpart when you will talk to them and when you won't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, all right. So we've set that up. This is a lot of information. I'm having so much fun. I mean, I hope they haven't shut this off because everyone's bored right now, but
I'm learning a lot. I'm having a great time.
awesome. That's great. So, setting a boundary and that communication, that's what we're talking about in like a relationship. So dating relationship, if you will.
Okay.
So you can say, there's lots of little tools in there in gaining an understanding of what the other person is meaning. And I alluded to this early on about calibrating. When we have any of those little nuances of, okay, what did you just say? I don't know if I like that, right? You're kind of like, ew, that was icky.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
feel those, that's your cue to do a check-in, and you're checking in to calibrate. Hey, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. What do you mean by that word? Hey, help me understand. And these become our lead-ins to attempt to calibrate. Now, if your counterpart is getting defensive when you're attempting to calibrate, that's a red flag.
Noted. Absolutely noted.
Right? Because if they're getting mad about your calibration, then those could be red flags about manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where manipulation is, I'm going to make you feel bad for me to get my way. And if something sparks you to be a little icky and you go, hey, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, they may be, well, what are you talking about? I don't even know. They may try to turn it and counter accuse or blame shift to hide their attempts to use your emotion for them to
Mm-hmm.
get their way. And this is something where I just like to say, hey, listen, you don't need to gaslight me. You don't need to, hey,
Definitely just
bro,
say it for sure.
listen, I will absolutely help you out 99% of the time. If it's within my capacity, just ask. You do not have
Don't need to be
to get,
sneaky.
I'm right here.
Uh-oh. You still there?
We're back on.
Oh,
You got me?
yes.
Okay, cool. So, um, what's really fun for me is you pull real life scenarios and then we play with those,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know if you've got any more of those if you're thinking about um conflicts or conversations or past guests or topics, because I'm sure you guys have talked about all kinds of things on
Oh
here.
yeah. I'm trying to think about like I'm not really sure. So like why would someone like is it okay? I guess my question is really like why would someone choose to like manipulate somebody else? Is that just something like that goes into their personality or is it like accidental or is it like only a specific type of person does this or like how does that work? How does manipulation work? Is anybody capable of it?
Anybody's capable of it, absolutely,
Okay.
for sure. And it's a communication that falls under a type of communication, right? But
Mhm.
more so, it's about behavior. And everybody demonstrates a behavior of any kind. And behavior is everything that you see my body do and
Mhm.
engage with, right? Um, Taking a drink from my water bottle, that's a behavior, right? I did something with my body.
Mhm.
Communicating with you, moving my hands around as I'm talking. These are all behaviors, right?
Mhm.
And we demonstrate behaviors usually for one of four reasons. And that's to get access to something or get gain, to escape a non preferred task or something that we want to escape from, to get attention,
Okay.
right? And the last one is sensory, because I don't feel good inside my body. And the sensory component is easily likened to, you know, I just can't be held responsible for what I said when I was hungry. Okay. I just, that hanger, it gets you and it gets you good. Right.
Yeah, it
And then
does.
you eat something, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I really didn't mean those words. But why did we do that? Why do we engage in whatever that hangry, right? When I'm hungry and then it comes out kind of angry like
Mhm.
behavior. Why did I do that? Well, I didn't feel good inside my body. I felt sick or I just couldn't connect that my body needed food. So I am having all kinds of things I shouldn't be held responsible for when I was hungry, right?
Interesting.
But
Okay.
that's the sensory thing. Okay. So and there's all kinds of, it's about how our internal organs communicate information to our brain. So you might need to go to the bathroom, you might be hungry, you might be thirsty, you might have not slept in 4 days, right? That's all of this sensory stuff that can dictate and drive behaviors. More commonly, we are going to demonstrate behaviors for those three reasons: access, escape, and attention. So you asked me, why would somebody manipulate, right?
Mhm.
And let's delineate and calibrate, if you will, on these words. So I'd like to talk about persuasion versus manipulation,
That's a good point.
right? Because manipulation is to make someone feel bad to get my way. And that's your check. If you want to know whether or not you're being manipulated, do you feel bad? Are you doing it because you're trying to escape that adverse emotional discomfort you're experiencing? Right.
Mhm.
So, manipulation is to make somebody feel bad to get your way. Persuasion is to help somebody see outside their current viewpoint. Persuasion is just opening somebody's mind and they still are granted the autonomy to make their own decisions, right?
Mhm.
Persuasion is really good I constantly am seeking out greater light and knowledge, and you have that aha, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I'm going to try that. Why? Because you were persuaded, and you were still, because you were given greater information. It's persuasion's counterfeit is manipulation.
Okay.
Okay, because now I'm seeking to take some of your autonomy from you. I want to control you.
Yeah.
It's a controlling tactic.
Mm-hmm.
So people will do this to manipulate, to get gain, to escape something, or to get attention. Right? Everybody is capable of it. I think a lot of the time we link into, oh, those narcissists. Well, guess what? We all have manipulated and have been manipulated. It is a
Mm-hmm.
communication. Um, uh, I don't want to say tactic or skill, but it's because I even see my kids manipulate me and they're little.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Why? Because it works. And so, and like all behaviors, we do what works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Least path of resistance. So, the best thing we can do to protect ourselves and also teach those who are within our stewardship would be to just educate them. And I love that little catch. If I'm feeling bad, if you're trying to influence me base and I'm going to feel, I'm making this decision because you're making me feel bad, that's when it's time to check in and say, hey, you don't have to make me feel bad to get your way. What are you really asking? And if it's within my capacity, I'm happy to serve.
I'm gonna start saying that.
It's a goodie.
You've opened my metaphorical eyes.
Oh, you've been persuaded.
You've been, look at that.
There you go. It all comes full circle. See, you just let me give you some information. You decide.
Well, Jen, this has been a
Questions?
fantastic interview. We have reached our hour. I
Great.
I I have learned so much. You know what's so funny is I did not even ask you a single question I had written down because you were so good at just like building your own answers to stuff. Like that's never happened before. Thank you. That's amazing.
Well, thank you for having me, Jay. It's absolutely a pleasure. I love speaking on these topics, and really love what you're doing here. So appreciate
Well,
you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, this has been Blind Dates with Jay Walker. This has been my guest, Miss Jenn Taylor. Jen, do you have any sort of social media websites or TikToks, anything fun that you'd like to throw out there?
You got it. You're welcome to follow me on Jenn Taylor Official on TikTok and Instagram. If the Unshakable Mother is something that sounds interesting to you as well, you can check that out at theunshakablemother.com, where I have a free training on there that gives lots of tools and tricks that you can jump on and watch and check it out.
Huh. And definitely go read her book when it comes out. If it's not already out, it's not already out, right?
Not yet. We've got there's two books that are positioned to come out here in the next 6 months, 3 to 6 months. One is about the all the tools and strategies. I break it down. It is the pure framework of diffusing the chaos and promoting peace. And then the other one is the hoodie effect, which dives really deep into our story in dealing with the potentials of teen suicide and what happens in the home and how to pull out, what to watch for. The hoodie effect, if it's okay, I'd love just to share one little snippet
Please,
so that people
absolutely.
understand what the hoodie effect means, right? The hoodie effect is where a child zips their coat to the chin and flips their hood to the brow. They withdraw their light and they mute their countenance. They become invisible right in front of your face. And this social armor is their outward expression of their inner pain. And it's a pain that they don't understand. And that's the hoodie effect. What does it mean for us? Is if we have eyes to see those who are invisible, acknowledge their hidden pain, reassure them they're not alone, and then show up. And as we have the awareness to look for those in the hood, we can help pull them out and help them know while they're still so little, because this is 8, 9, 10, 11 years
Yeah,
old, to prevent that one decision they can't come back from later on in life.
that's really powerful. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate being here.
Of course. Well, if anybody has any comments, questions, or concerns for me or Miss Jenn, please feel free to reach out at blinddatesjw@gmail.com. That is BLINDDATESJW@gmail.com. Um, you can find me on Instagram at the_real_J_Walker. You can find us on at Facebook at Blind Dates with Jay Walker. The with is a W with a slash because I am too lazy to write out the whole word. Um, please feel free to follow us. Please feel free to DM us, and I will be sure to at very least look at it. Um, all right. Well, this has been an amazing episode. Thank you so much, Jenn.
Thank you.
I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Appreciate it. You take care now.